basically, I asked Marcelo to give some kind of lecture, speech about Capoeira. Starts with history, mostly the side of history that, in his opinion, is the most logic one, because the explanation of Capoeira in the history is not unknown really. And then maybe to speak a little bit about the other explanation theories of Capoeira developed, and also to speak a lot of Capoeira, what it means for him, okay, and what it means also to be a Capoeira teacher for your students and stuff like this, and a lot of stuff that we're going to ask him that he doesn't know yet, but later on you will have to.
Those are the best.
Yeah. Later on you will have to answer some questions of the instructors here. What bothers them, or what interests them in work of Capoeira working in it. Okay? So I think that the best is starting a little bit with history.
Well, first of all, let me say this, that I like to have an agenda of things that I'm going to talk, but I also like to be a capoeirista even at this time, and allow the room for creativity and spontaneity, because maybe the conversation will diverge to something else, but something else that is interesting also. So if that's the case, then let's do it. Okay? Then let's do it. Let's let it divert to things that are more interesting. I like talking about the history because I do have a different perspective on the history. And but I also, to tell you the truth, I don't want to spend too much time with the history. The reason for that is because history is something that you will always going to have a chance to look into. And also history you can find in so many different sources, so many different books, so many things, that is always possible to access. And then it's always possible to happen to you what has happened to me in terms of the history, is that you read tons of books and then you start figuring stuff out on your own. You will start. It's something that is intuitive. It happens with all people in all areas of studies. People that are anthropologists, people that are scientists. They read, they study so much a subject, and then all of a sudden, some things start making some sense in their mind. Like people that are, study astrology. They know the stuff. Some of it is science, and they know, and some of it is intuition. They just figure things out because of the experience that they have. And with me, a lot of it has happened like that. In the beginning, I believed in the whole history of Capoeira, that the slaves were in the quilombos, and that they were like, fighting against their pressures in that same way that the history has been telling us. But then after reading more and more and more and more, I started figuring out that it wasn't exactly quite like that happened. There was the beginning of the movement of freedom and liberation. It started from the slaves running away, but the Capoeira itself didn't start like that. It was not that we want to make Capoeira to make this history that is very dramatic and very exciting, like a novel or something. But it wasn't quite like that. If you have had a chance to read the book The Ring of Liberation, which is written by a friend of mine, Lo Lewis, he puts a very good perspective there on how Capoeira is a lot more of an urban phenomenon than actually something that came from the quilombos.
What is urban?
Urban, like it is developed in the city. Okay, and of course, there's a whole. I'll tell you just a little experience that happened to me. I read for many years. I read a lot of stuff about Capoeira. I read a lot of stuff, and I kept creating my pictures of how Capoeira was. how capoeira used to be. And I have, throughout my, my training in capoeira, I had different pictures, different views. But then there was one view that stuck to me in my mind for the longest time. It was this interpretation that I had, this image that I had in my mind of how capoeira was. I had this clear image. I had this, and I mean, trust me, I read books, but I talked a lot to old masters. I would meet the master and I would ask him, how was capoeira in your time? How did you train capoeira? How did you do your ginga? How was it? And I gathered a lot of information. And then I pictured capoeira in this way in my mind. I really pictured how capoeira was when capoeira first started. And I had this very clear picture. Well, here's what happened. Something very interesting happened. A friend of mine went to Martinique. And Martinique is an island. It's a small island in the Caribbean. And Martinique was an island that was conquered by the French. And there was a time that the French people also invaded the northeast of Brazil. Something about 200 years ago. They invaded the northeast of Brazil. And they used to do slave trades in between the two countries. And they completely invaded Brazil at a time that the Portuguese people were already having trouble with other politics. They couldn't get hold, of their own organization, the government. And there have been several different occasions where at some point it was the French, at some other point it was the Dutch people. They invaded the northeast of Brazil, and they stayed there for a while. And I don't know if that has anything to do with the invasion of the French, but I highly suspect that it does. And that is there's a lot of room for people, anthropologists and scientists, to start studying that. But what happened is they have an art form in Martinique called ladia. And when I saw this art form for the first time, I got like goosebumps all over my body. Because for me, it was a very clear picture that I had in my mind of how capoeira was when it was a very primitive art form. Now, does Martinique have anything to do with capoeira? We don't know. Nobody knows, because no studies have been done on that. Is ladia is the art form. Is ladia like capoeira? No, it's not like capoeira. It's very different than capoeira. But there are a lot of similarities. When you look at ladia, you can see how it is like how capoeira as a primitive art form could have been. And then you can see that form of art could only evolve if it was in a big country, rather than being a small island. See, Martinique is a very small island. If in a small island, there is not much more to expand. In Brazil, there was a lot to expand. There was a certain time the capoeiristas from Bahia, they moved everywhere in Brazil. They went to Rio, they went to São Paulo, they went to the northeast in Pernambuco. Those regions were close anyway. Pernambuco, Alagoas was very close from one another. And then in all those different places, capoeira started taking developing their own characteristic. That's why today, for example, the capoeira from Rio is so different than the capoeira from Bahia. And the capoeira from Pernambuco is also very different from Rio and from Bahia. But the capoeira from São Paulo is also very different, but it's a little more similar to the capoeira in Bahia, because São Paulo capoeira happened there more recently, not as old as in Rio. So who brought the capoeira there to São Paulo was really the Baiano masters. All the Baianos, the history of capoeira in São Paulo is straight related to Bahia. The history of capoeira in Rio, nobody knows about it. Nobody really knows. They have done studies. They don't know how capoeira ended up in Rio. They don't know. They just know that capoeira is there. There have been different theories. Some people think that maybe capoeira just popped up at the same time in different places. Because the slaves, they used to practice the same kinds of dance, the same kinds of rituals and fights of their own tribes and rituals. They had the opportunity to develop the same art in different places. And then of course, with the slaves exchange from state to state and some type of communication, they started, creating a certain common ground. Even though it was dispersed, there was a certain common ground that kept happening. So basically what I have to say about the history is, I think that there is a lot of room. I mean, the history is a very exciting thing, because there's a lot of room still for people to go and do a lot of study and do a lot of research and start finding out more about it. Some stuff we know. Some stuff we know for sure. We know the slaves were brought to Brazil. We know what kind of slaves went there. We know where they went. We know how we know that they were practicing their dances and rituals and, in different instances, in different situations, mostly at the market, at the street market, or the street vendors, or the street gatherings, or festivities, festivals, and stuff like that. We know all of that. We know some history of some capoeiristas that were famous, that became well known because they had a movement of, not a body movement, but a movement that they were well known in the capoeira world by being there and doing whatever, maybe even fighting against oppression like Besouro Mangangá, or, but Zumbi, for example, nobody really knows if Zumbi even knew capoeira. This is a fact. This is a fact. There is nothing that have been proven that there was capoeira in the quilombos even. Okay? So for many people, this could be a disappointment. They can think, wow, I thought that there was all of that. Well, don't be disappointed, because on the other hand, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of stuff to be discovered. There was a time in Brazil that a lot of the documents of slavery were burned. Those documents were burned because, according to the guy that ordered the burning, the Rui Barbosa, he wanted to erase the shame that we had from having slavery in Brazil. So they gathered all kinds of documentation all over the country. All over, wherever they could find any document, anything that had to do with somebody being a slave, even if it was a birth certificate, they would pile them up in public square and set fire on everything. Well, it was one of the biggest crime that we had in terms of our history in Brazil, because there was a lot of good information that we could have had there, to study today and to really know about it. So a lot of the information was passed on by word of mouth. Some documents were found in different places, but not enough, So now, the chances we have to know about capoeira, in my opinion, are bigger in other countries than in Brazil. Why is that? Because even during the time of the colonization, there was trades and interaction with other countries. So other countries were going to Brazil. Brazil was exporting sugarcane, it was exporting cocoa, it was exporting coffee, it was exporting tons of different goods to all over the world. And with this exportation, there were also documentations, there were also people that were academic people that were traveling.
Also artists.
There were artists that were doing drawings like Rugendas and many others. There were priests that were going there trying to convert the Indians and then write. The priests are the main source of history that we have found. Because, you know, the priests, they were an organized institution, that they were writing every single thing that they were learning. There's this one priest in Brazil that he wrote like so many books of the languages of the Brazilian Indians. Is just, there is one book that he wrote, I mean, one series of books that and those are not books that have been published. But I went to libraries in Brazil and did the research and went into the library and started looking for those letters that this guy wrote. And one of the titles that you can find is called A Língua Mais Falada na Costa do Brasil, the most spoken language at the coast of Brazil. So this guy studied the Indians. And he studies the Indians like very deeply. And interesting enough, in one of his books, the notes that he wrote, he writes a letter to the King of Portugal. And in this letter he says, the Brazilian Indians played an interesting game called Capoeira. But nobody have been able to really know if what he was saying, if this game Capoeira was really the Capoeira that we play, because it could be something completely different. It could be another game that they played. It could be he didn't describe the game. He didn't describe what the game was. So it could be there was a game completely different that the Indians called Capoeira, and then the Africans borrowed the name. Just borrowed the name and called their art also Capoeira, because the word Capoeira, from the Capoeira that we do, is the origins is the Indian language, which is Capoeira. It means a short weeds in a place, in an area that have been recently cut down, all the woods and all the brushes and whatever you call, you know, small bushes, right? So then that area is called Capoeira. But nobody have been really able to really pinpoint exactly, okay? The urban Capoeira, we can go on in many different theories, because it did develop differently, and that has been documented already. And it has been developed differently in the streets of Rio, in the streets of Salvador, in the streets of Olinda and Recife. Okay. Now from that there are many different points that we could go to, but before I go into that, I would say this, or instead of going to that, I wrote down some topics that I would like to talk, and I think that those topics could be things that are very, very interesting for you guys, particularly for the people that are instructors, but for the other people too. I think would be some very interesting topics. Those are things that I talk in my classes on an everyday basis. Every class that I have, I always have a little talk with my students, because we learn a lot Capoeira just by talking, just by listening. There's a lot of learning that I experienced that with Suassuna. And but also I know that perhaps some of you have some ideas of some things, some topics, or something that you'd like to be discussed. So if you have that, then I would like you to let me know now. I think that now would be a good time to know, so I can more or less plan how much I can go into the stuff that I plan to say, and how much time we can give into what you guys really want to hear. So is there anybody here that had anything in mind that you think that would be interesting, that you would like, for me to talk with you guys?
I think it's best to start with your ideas, maybe
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay. For me, to talk about Capoeira, I think that it's important that I talk a little bit about myself, just because you will understand a little bit of of the why of my involvement with capoeira, and also you will understand, because there are some topics that I want to get into. There are some things that are very deep into the capoeira training, and I only learned that. I only learned that depth because of the things, the experiences that I went through. Those things are not things that there are many masters out there that are able to communicate and express that. I know that I do because I had my own quests. I had my own quest, and my own quest was a very profound one. And then I was very determined. I saw something else in capoeira, other than just the body movement. I saw something else that was very interesting. And when I saw that, it made sense immediately why people love capoeira so much. Because capoeira is a phenomenon. Everywhere we go in the world and we do capoeira, it is how you guys feel about it. It's the same thing. People get so drawn into it. They love it so much. People, they leave everything that they were doing in their lives and they start dedicating themselves to capoeira. And I found, for myself, I found the answers for that. And so I need to tell a little bit about my history. And my history, in capoeira goes way back when I was a kid. And I used to live in a very aggressive neighborhood in São Paulo, which was the outskirts of São Paulo, the periphery of São Paulo. And the neighborhood was very, very aggressive. There was some kind of a wave at the time of aggression and violence that it was very disturbing. And I was very young. I was about 14 years old, and I already had to deal with a lot of conflicts. I started dealing with conflicts in much younger age, when I was about 10. But to that extent, from 10 to 14, I was still very protected because I was a lot inside in the house. I was not so much out there. 14 years old, I started really going out more and really seeing the world and exploring the world. And then I started facing the confrontations, facing the aggression, the violence that was there. And for that, I had to fight a lot. There were a lot of fights, real fights, fist fights, and things that were happening on a daily basis. And things that for me, particularly, was very scary. I didn't like it. I was trained in one side in my house by my parents not to fight, not to create trouble. And on the other hand, I had to defend myself on the street, because if I didn't, I would be like severely abused and severely jeopardized by, physically even, by the other kids. They were out there on the streets and creating trouble. So I had not only to fight out there, but to be quiet at home about the fights, because I could be in trouble twice if I didn't do it, right? So that thing kept, what happened is, I felt there was a certain time, I think that my father, for example, he was very intuitive, and he noticed the environment that we were living in, and he also felt intuitively that we were going to confront crisis, or to find confrontation out there. And one thing that he taught us, it was like, you don't fight, you don't have to fight, but you also don't have to bring an insult home. It's important to stand up for yourself if it's necessary. So if you need to stand up for yourself, then go ahead and stand up. Don't come home with an insult, because that can be even worse than fighting. And I found out that was true, because I saw a lot of other kids going home with an insult, and then really not doing really well in school, quitting school, going into a totally different realm than I was going. And on the other hand, I had to put up this mask and really be a tough guy and fight strong in order to be assertive and to assure my territory. Well, what happened was, because I was not involved in any gangs, in any group fighting type of thing, it was particularly more difficult for me, my brother, and a few other friends, because we were not associated with any groups that could back us up. So we were an easy target for challenge. And so we were challenged all the time, almost every day. And we had to fight. And I started becoming very scared of what was going on, because there were some situations that were very scary. I don't need to mention much, but more than half of the people that grew up with me are dead today. Dead. They have been murdered. Stuff happened to them, and I was also growing up doing a military dictatorship, so there was another reality there when I got a little older, 17, 18. But I decided that I wanted to train a martial art. I said, I want to train something because I need to learn how to fight really well. So I didn't start training capoeira only because I liked capoeira, because I was excited. I started because of a need. It was a self-defense. And sure enough, after I started training capoeira, things really changed. I didn't see myself in trouble anymore.
What kind of capoeira was it? If you went there to learn martial arts, what capoeira you learned? How it looked like the class? What the kind of macaquinho all day long?
No. The capoeira training was very different. Capoeira training was very objective. It was very objective, the training. It was, one of the things that was very strong in those days was the expression element. And I have been talking to you, to Noah, about this past few days. But it is body expression was a big thing of it. And behind the class, behind the whole atmosphere of capoeira, there was this objectivity. You would never enter the roda just to play a little beautiful capoeira game. Never, ever. It was completely inconceivable. This reality was not even present in capoeira in those days.
So the challenge
You were always chasing each other. It's not necessarily there was a challenge, there was a really tough challenge, they were really killing each other, and it was being very scared about that. No. You had the room to be relaxed and to play capoeira. To play capoeira nicely, to play comfortable. But the objective was always to chase, to trap somebody, and to counterattack and to neutralize your opponent's movements with whatever resources you had. For me, that was very interesting because it was a very big part of my reality already, you see? Except that it was part of my reality, but with an element of safety. Now with an element of safety, because there was a master, there was the ritual of respect that was there was helping, helping me to feel safe. I mean, make no mistake, I was playing capoeira sometimes in rodas when I was a beginner with people that were really tough and really good in capoeira, and I was scared of them also. I was scared of them the same way that I was scared of the fights on the street, except that in the academy, there was a lot more room of safety for me because there was the element respect, the etiquettes of the game. And this is one of the hardest things to teach because you have the respect, but also there's a line, and who really knows where to draw the line? The line is something very difficult to know where to draw. In my classes, I teach my students to do capoeira, to play capoeira, and to build up their line, slowly. Because I think that's how I remember how capoeira was in my days. You never enter the roda, like today, you go to Brazil in some rodas, and immediately when you get there, the vibe of the roda is tense, immediately. You see those guys that pump iron all day long, they're really strong, really buff, and they're really there, and their bottom line goal is to kick ass. They want to just, they want to prove themselves, and in that kind of environment, capoeira is really losing its essence. Because the capoeira, one of the strongest things in capoeira has always been that element surprise. The element surprise, you never know what's going to happen. You were there, you were playing, the game was okay, it was nice, you felt a little bit of a challenge, then it built it up. It built it up. I was playing with you, then all of a sudden, you know, the game was not, you were trusting me on letting go on your game. Then all of a sudden, I, boom, would do a rasteira and take you down. But it wasn't a really bad rasteira. It was just a kind of a rasteira, more of a, what's the word, desprezo, you know? When you're just kind of, not underestimated, but kind of fooling around and also kind of undermining, kind of putting your partner down a little bit, not too much, but a little bit, like joking around, and also with an element of malicia there, saying, oh, you know, be alert. So then that would build up, because the guy that got taken down would already start changing the vibe of the game and feeling where the challenge could go. So then he could come and try to get me back with something, and then I would get back to him with something else, and then we kept building up that challenge. Building up, building up, building up to a level that then maybe was really challenging. But by that point, we were all okay with that. We were all fine, feeling good about it, feeling that we accepted the challenge. It was not something that happened out of the blue. We jumped in the hall and somebody came in and tried to kick our ass. No. It was there was a mutual agreement. There was a mutual agreement to raise that challenge. I think if the capoeiristas today can become more and more aware of that, then we can rescue that. We can rescue the element of how capoeira was. Because today, capoeira has lost to two extremes. You go to some rodas and you see people just being tough, as I said, trying to kick ass, and you go to some other rodas and you see people just doing solos, different capoeira solo, one doing a solo over there, the other one doing a solo over there, doing only acrobatics over there, only acrobatics over there, and they're not really connecting the game. If they do connect, they connect very little. And that the essence of capoeira is more connection than anything else. More connection. And then, if you can connect and throw your acrobatics at a time that you cannot get caught, that is the ultimate thing. That's the ultimate thing. Within your game, within the dialogue of the game, throw something that your opponent couldn't get to, or it would be too cheap to get to. So they would kind of hold back because you had it. You did it at a good time, right? So then, again, the game comes back to the dialogue. Interaction, attack, escape, chasing each other, challenging their way. And then, boom, a little acrobatic. That's really nice. And again, back into the connection to dialogue. You know, that's how capoeira was, was done. And at some levels, in some rodas, the challenge would get really, really big. I say the capoeira today is more violent and less dangerous than on the older days. In the older days, it used to be less violent and more dangerous. A lot more dangerous. Because, as I said, you could be playing a really nice game, the game could build up, and then all of a sudden somebody that is your friend could really damage you really bad. And that was okay. That was accepted. It was a challenge that he wanted. In Suassuna's Academy, we had all those things happen. I got my ear cut in two pieces by Biriba, and I broke Biriba's arm in two pieces too. You know, and it happened. You know.
Best friends.
Best friends. My training partner. We were like, you know, rice and beans. They're training together all the time. Except that I graduated in capoeira, training capoeira on Saturdays only. Because I always worked and studied, you see. I started working when I was 8 years old. I started working full time. I come from a very poor family, very poor family. My family had nothing. The place that we lived had no electricity, no water. We had to have a well, and nothing, no sewage system, not even windows in the doors, in the walls, just holes that we would put boards at night to sleep. And that was it. That was my reality. I had to work very early age. And when I was 14, I was working full-time and studying at night, because in Brazil, when I was 14, before I was 14, I worked in all kinds of things you can imagine. I worked on the street fairs. I worked selling stuff on the street market, selling oranges, selling pastel, selling door-to-door things. I worked on the traffic, on the street corners, selling different things like little flags or candies or stuff like that. And I worked as a shoe shining for many years. The little boy, the little box on his back, shoe shining, and also doing carrying ladies' shop groceries. We had those little box carts that we made with wheelbarrows, very noisy and annoying, and we'd go all over town. We'd get up 4 o'clock in the morning and would go to the street fairs, because they start early, but they finish early also. They finish at noon. So up until today, I go back to Brazil and I meet some of the ladies that I work with. They come to me and they hug me and they cry and they say, "I can't believe you are now in the United States. You used to carry, my groceries for me. I'm so happy for you." And I feel proud of that. I feel proud of all of that. Even though at the time I didn't like it. I really didn't like it because I was a kid. What I wanted to do is I wanted to play, like the other kids were doing. But what happened is a lot of kids were doing what I was doing too. So it was easy for me to understand, and we needed it. We really needed it. We had everybody in the house had to work. In fact, I started training capoeira hidden from my parents because I had to pay for capoeira classes, and I was afraid that my parents would say, "No, you can't do it because we need the money," instead of you spending the money on something that is superfluous, that we don't know what it is. So I didn't tell them for about a year, and until my mom found a capoeira pen inside my bag and said, "What is this?" And then she was actually happy. I felt some kind of pride in her that I was doing capoeira, because she's Baiana herself, and she felt that was somehow I was kind of carrying on the heritage of her side of the family. But then at the age of 14, I was working offices in the city, in downtown São Paulo, like office assistant, like the message boy that goes and deliver message to other business and this and that. And I worked full time, like from 8 to 5, and then 5 o'clock left and went straight to night school, and I could only train capoeira on Saturdays. And then I would train, because the academy was open on Saturday, and I would train on my own on Sundays. And of course, during school vacation, then I would go to Suassuna's academy and train every day. But that was my reality. Then when I graduated in capoeira, immediately I quit all the jobs I was doing and opened my own academy. Opened my own academy that was just capoeira. And taught capoeira there for a couple of years. Went to college, put myself to college, had to pay for everything, and opened my second academy. After 1 year having 2 academies, I felt that was too much. Closed one, stayed with only one academy. And then I received an invitation to come to go to the United States. That was 1980.
How many years did it take you to graduate?
It took me to graduate about 7 years.
7 years of Saturdays and Sundays.
7 years of Saturdays and Sundays, and during vacation, then every day. But I actually really consider more of 6 years than 7 years. Because 7 years is the time that I was exposed to capoeira. But the first exposure that I had to capoeira, the first year, it was just on the streets. I was just practicing with people that knew capoeira, but was not with a capoeira master. And then when I was 15, that's when I really went to a capoeira master and started really training seriously. So that was a very interesting, time. But here's what happened. Here's what happened to me. I feel lucky enough that my parents were always, the one thing that my father always told me was this. He said, "I don't care what you do in your life. Even if you don't have a job, that's fine. But one thing that you're going to do is you're going to study." And so we had in our mind that we had to study. And school became an important thing. And when I went, then I graduated in PE. I studied PE in Brazil, graduated in PE. I was basically starting my career in being a capoeirista and a PE. But I already studied PE because of capoeira. I wanted physical education. Yeah. So I already did physical education because I was guiding my life more towards being a capoeirista, and I wanted to know more about sports and training and stuff like that. And then I got the opportunity to go to the United States. When I got to the United States, it was a big shift in my life. Completely different culture. I didn't speak English. Cold temperature. I was not really used to it. Started getting a lot of injuries. Had to take care of my injuries. Couldn't afford. Start trading massage for capoeira. Met somebody that was a great massage therapist. Really incredible guy. One of the best in the country, in the United States. And he was interested in training capoeira. So I started not only getting massage from him, but taking lessons. And then I got into the healing world. I started learning more about healing, which was something that I started making a connection and feel that there was had a lot to do with what I was doing in capoeira. But at that time didn't make much sense. So, let's see. So basically, when then I went through many different phases of crisis. And those crises led me to the quest of what capoeira meant to me. What capoeira really meant to me. Why am I doing this? Why am I here in the United States? I asked myself many times. Why was I there? I had a beautiful academy down in Brazil. Academy was successful. I was the most successful Suassuna student at the time. They had already a beautiful academy that organized major events. In those days already, like 25 years ago, or more, 28 years ago, and I just felt, why am I here, And I started discovering that there was something else in capoeira that was keeping me there. There was something else of me being in the United States that kept me there, And that was something that then I started learning why, and I feel that very few capoeiristas know this. You guys can move forward here if you feel like it. Well, obviously, you have noticed already that through capoeira, I started having a lot of self-discovery because capoeira got me out of trouble. Capoeira gave me some directions because before I didn't have any direction, and I started discovering that capoeira for me was a process of self-discovery. That I was really learning a lot about myself and learning about the fear that I had about life. Because I grew up in a chaotic environment, and I had a lot of fear of the fights. Then I went to the Capoeira Academy, and the Capoeira Academy was also very challenging. I had fear. And why did I stick to it? It's because, the fears in the capoeira was safe. The way to deal with the fear was safe, and I felt, okay, this is the purpose that I'm finding it. I'm learning how to deal with my fear, and then things start to make sense. I say, okay, it's a challenge. I can accept or I cannot, but I will accept it because I like this, and this started helping me really to move forward, and more and more, and I started getting the feeling of freedom from the fear that was imprisoning me for so long. Once when I learned that, I started also learning that what goes on in a capoeira roda can go out of control. You can go out of control. If you don't have in a roda a mestre that is really respectful and that really knows what he's doing, all of a sudden the capoeira roda environment can become a chaos also. Can really become a chaos. So it's very important that whoever was leading the roda was very assertive and really knew how to protect the integrity of the players whenever it was time for that. Because if they don't, then what is the purpose behind? What would have been the purpose behind? I would have left capoeira, or capoeira would not have helped me out. Capoeira could actually, instead of helping somebody, harm somebody. If the people that are in the position of leadership, like all the people that are instructing capoeira, are not able to sense and to feel that. When I started feeling that, I realized one thing. Why do we do capoeira? Why are we all doing capoeira? And I started paying a lot of attention to people. In the meantime, continuing my quest in all the different areas, on my healing path, on my spiritual path, on my training. And I discovered this, that anybody that is doing capoeira, anybody that gets attracted to capoeira, what they are doing is they are looking for some type of approval. Okay? Approval. It might sound to you right now that is not the reason why you are in capoeira. That's okay. Just stay with that thought. Stay with that thought for a while. Because the approval is not necessarily an approval of other people. Oftentimes it is. Oftentimes it is. That one person is looking for the approval of others. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's your own approval of yourself. You want to do capoeira because it's nice, it looks good, and you want to be able to look good in that way too. Why do you need to look good that way? Why do you really need to look good in that way? Because down deep inside, there is a message that has been given to you that if you're not good at something, then you are not good at all. That's the way that we grow up. You go to school, if you get good grades, you're good. You're a good student. If you don't get good grades, you're not good. If you behave at your parents' house, you're a good kid. If you don't behave, you're not good. That's the message that you get, that is given to you. Okay? If you have a job, and you do your work well done, then you're good. Your boss likes you. If you're not doing your work well done, your boss will fire you, will fight with you, will argue with you. You are in a relationship, you are acting according to how society wants you to act, or to the expectations of how your parents taught you, how society expects you to be, then you are considered good. If you do something that is out of the ordinary, then in that relationship, then you're considered no good. These are the messages that we get all the time, since the time we were born. Okay? So we get into capoeira and we transfer the same thing into capoeira. Just well, you're doing capoeira because you want to feel good about yourself. You want the approval, either of your own self-approval or of somebody else. Is there anything wrong with that? No. That's fine. That's good. But there's something else for you to look into that. That is the most important thing, which is the truth of who you are, is that you are good no matter what. Even if you're not good in capoeira, even if you're not very good at your job, in your relationship with your parents, whatever. Okay, this is the biggest lesson that you can learn in capoeira, and I'll tell you why. I make this association in capoeira because I have found in capoeira that capoeira is an incredible tool to teach people about self-discovery and to help people to heal from this kind of wounds that they bring from their childhood, which is imprinted very deep inside our subconscious level, and we have no idea where the hell it comes from. You have no idea of what it is. You live your life being frustrated and being happy, being disappointed and being okay or being happy. And then you fall into the syndrome of the ups and downs. It happens in capoeira all the time. I tell my students frequently, if you don't know how to deal with the ups and downs, if you don't know that the ups and downs are part of capoeira, you are not being a capoeirista. You're not being fully a capoeirista. It's very important that you know that, because if it didn't come to you yet, it will come for sure. And if already came to you once and you have overcome it, it will come again. It will come again for sure. There will be times that you will feel down and you feel you have reached a plateau. You're not going anywhere. You're feeling frustrated. You don't want to do capoeira anymore. You start questioning yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And you end up giving up just because you have too high expectations of yourself. And if you're not doing this good enough, then you are not good enough. You might as well go do something else, dance salsa, or get into some other sport, or get very depressed. Go home and be depressed and not know what to do. So learn, first of all, know this. The ups and downs are part of the process. And there is nothing you can do about it. Sure, there are little drills that you can have to help you out to get out of it, but there's nothing you can do about it. You will have ups and downs in capoeira. So know this. When you're having the downs, know that it's just temporary. No matter how bad it feels, know that it's temporary. It's going to go away. It might take a few months even. It's not going to be, oh, it's going to go away, or when? Next week I'm going to feel motivated again. No. Come on. You have a whole history of what's going on in your life. Maybe you're having problems at home. Maybe you're having relationship problems. You don't know how to deal with them. And then those things keep piling up. And until you resolve all the other areas, guess what's going to affect? It's going to affect the thing that you like the most. It's going to affect your capoeira. And then that's going to make you even more frustrated. But know this, when this is happening, please know that that is just a temporary phase. It's going to go away, and you're going to find inspiration again. You will find inspiration again. The reason why I know stuff like that, and I can tell you this is a sure thing, is because I have been there several times. To know philosophy and to sit here and just talk about it is nice and beautiful for the ones listening. But for the ones that really lived the situation, it was not necessarily really nice, because we had to overcome the difficulties. In the meantime, I had to overcome the difficulties, but I think that those were the best things that could ever happen in my life, because those were the things that led me to the quest that taught me the lessons that I learned, and that today I wouldn't change them for anything in my life. No matter how bad the situation was, I wouldn't change anything. So, know that capoeira is a tool that you can use to help people out to access the truth of who they really are. How do you do that as an instructor? The ones that are teaching right now. Go to the basic principle that I just said a little while ago. Everybody that is in Capoeira is there for one common purpose. It is, the purpose it is, there's something about themselves that they are looking for approval. Deep inside, they think that there's something wrong with them. Down deep inside, they think that there's something wrong with them. Students come to me all the time with all different kinds of problems. Because of Master, what I have, I have this and I have that, and I can't, I immediately start observing the frustration. I can't do this, I can't do Capoeira as much as I want anymore. I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling this, I'm fighting with my girlfriend. Go straight to the source. You don't need to think about too much. You know that this person is calling for help. Everybody that is in Capoeira, it is in some way looking for some sort of help. They're looking for some answers. The only answer you can give to them, and that does not even need to be verbal, does not even need to be verbal, just trust me, I guarantee that to you. The only answer you can give to them is just the knowledge, just to know deep inside for yourself that that person is okay. No matter what their behavior looks like. Because we get mixed up with the truth of who you are and the behavior that you have. They are two different things. People sometimes behave in ways that are out of the ordinary and immediately makes other people jump into conclusion and judge them in terms of who they are. Well, guess what? The behavior that they're having is not who they are. It's not. The behavior that they have are things that they have learned along their existence. Well, doesn't that mean that it is who they are? No, it doesn't. And you can test it out yourself. You can just make a test, and you will find out. Because when you look at somebody's eyes and you're really listening to them, and you just know that they are okay. You really know, no matter what the problem is, can be the worst problem in the world, can be a very little problem. When you know that they're okay, immediately they will start feeling that you know that. And immediately they will start changing towards you. Immediately. They will start changing towards you, and they're going to start feeling your acceptance, the acceptance that you have towards who they are. Okay? I know that for many of you, this here might be a little bit too much. For many of you, this concept might be a little bit too much for you to grasp and to really understand and to really believe in it. So that's okay. That's okay. If you don't see it, if you don't feel that way yet, just stay with the thought. Keep this thought. You don't even need to harvest the thought. You don't even need to try to believe in it. Just have this thought for yourself. Make a little note, if you will. And start observing throughout the years now to come about this theory. And then you will realize, particularly if you are a Capoeira instructor, that you have an incredible tool in your hand, and you can help so many people out. Because I have been witnessing that happening all over the world with the Capoeira masters.
You have ways to improve people, or just teaching Capoeira to improve people?
First of all, you don't even need to think that you need to improve them. Because if you think that they need to improve, you yourself are believing that there is something wrong with them. Right? They will improve. They will get better. Because they will overcome their own belief that they had. The belief that they had that there was something wrong with them. The more they do Capoeira, the more they play, the more they are happy, the more they feel approved, the more they will start coming out and improving. All you have to do is just to hold that thought and know with certainty, know that the person can be good in capoeira. Know that they can improve. Know that for yourself. So yes, you can give them feedback. That doesn't mean that you're not going to do the work. You're still going to do the work. You're still going to teach capoeira. You're still going to help them out. People are going to come to you with all kinds of problems, crying, complaining, this and that. You're going to help them out. But when you help them out, you need to have the thought yourself. You need to have the knowledge that you know that they are okay, that there's nothing wrong with them. And when you know that yourself, you will start seeing what you need to teach. You will start seeing. There's no formula. I can't tell you one specific case. Once when you know that deep inside, you know it's going to be different for every single student that you teach. Because everybody comes from a different background. They have a different history. They have had different experiences in their lives. And they come to you with all kinds of different problems, all kinds of different things. Most of the time is the problem starts being expressed in a way of a little frustration. Oh, I can't do this move. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. Oh, I trained so hard and I can't do it. That's the most common thing that you get, is some type of frustration. Sometimes some type of feeling of not believing in oneself, not believing that they really can do it. Okay? But if they overcome that, then they go to that phase, that's okay. They're going to improve, then at some point it's going to hit them. When they get very advanced, they are blue belts, or maybe they're blue and yellow, and they're already doing really good, and they have done a lot, they have experienced all the different realms in capoeira, and then now they're feeling stuck. Why are they feeling stuck? Immediately because they feel that there's something wrong with them. If they know there's nothing wrong with them, they will be okay. Even if they are not doing that great in capoeira, they will be okay. They will be patient. Say, okay, this is a process that I'm going through right now. It's going to be over. It doesn't change who I am. So I don't need to be frustrated. I don't need to be upset. It doesn't change who I am. I'm going to just keep training, and things are going to fall in place at a certain point. Okay? So if you hold that thought, you will really help them out, and you will figure out what you have to do. On the other hand, there are a few things that we can do to enhance that kind of teaching, and that's why in capoeira we have rituals. The ritual of respect, the ritual of the roda, the ritual of coming down to berimbau, greeting each other, asking for permission to play, knowing how to recognize the rhythm. Rituals were invented just as a reminder. Keep that in mind. There is nothing magical or subliminal or that comes from heaven, whatever, in terms of the rituals. No. Ritual is a reminder. It's a reminder that it works as a way of a positive reinforcement. That's all it is. Why in Brazil we put the ribbon of Nosso Senhor do Bonfim, and you do 3 knots and you think of 3 wishes, and then you carry on that with you. This is just a little ritual that we have. You know, it's what is the word that we call those things? Superstition. Okay? It's a little superstition. Wow, that's a superstition. Yes, it is a superstition, sure. The people immediately, they make this relationship, well, superstition. I don't believe in superstition. Fine. Does the 3 little knots are the things that really make your wish happen? No. Of course not. What makes perhaps some things to happen is that every time you see the ribbon, if you remember that you had a wish, you are giving a positive reinforcement towards something that you believe. That's called faith. It's just faith. You believe there was something that you wanted, and you're reminding yourself all the time. If you remind of yourself and reminding of things that you believe and things that you wanted, this is called faith. You're having faith. Then the superstition, sometimes, if you had enough faith, becomes true. Not because it's a magical thing, because it's just a logical thing. It's the law, of it's like mathematics, like mathematics. You think of something, you want something, you believe in it, you create it. You create a situation. You start thinking of it a lot, you will create the situation that you want for yourself. You really will create. It's amazing how those things happen. The more you exercise that, the more you will see that being manifested in your life. A funny one thing that happened with a student of mine back in California, Peneira, right? Last year, she was talking to me. She was so tired of working so much and working in the city and this and that. And in a conversation with me, she kind of let it out and said, you know, Mestre, man, I'm so tired of working so hard. I wish I could just get a job done in Brazil, get an American salary. 2 months later, somebody in her company, it was like a hotel company, a company that buys things for hotel, needed somebody that could speak Portuguese to go down to Brazil and help manage the business in the hotel there. And there was nobody that could do but her. She got invited like that. Had everything paid for in Brazil. Had her apartment paid in California. They paid for her apartment to keep her apartment. Paid her apartment down in Brazil. Gave her an American salary to be working there and training Capoeira Associação Academy. You know? It was just out of the blue like that. Was that a coincidence? You can think it is. But
So, what if you could speak a little bit about education tools in Capoeira, because most of the people here, most of these young guys, you know.
When you are working with young people, I think that that's basically the bottom line that you have to do is like the discipline. You know, you need to know that the discipline that we have in Capoeira, they have a purpose. The purpose of the discipline and the rituals that we have is to help people that don't know yet why it's important that they have the discipline, so they can achieve something that one day they will understand the whys and abouts, right? So to teach capoeira to kids, you go or to young guys that are going through a lot of changes in their life, it's something that is very challenging. It's very challenging because the world today is full of stimulation, you know, and kids are very impatient. They don't have that much patience anymore. They come to class, they don't want to do ginga and do a bunch of kicks. They want to right away go straight into the business of flipping and doing stuff like that. How do you bypass that thing? Or how do you really do something? I'll tell you this. The trick to that is just to do two things. One is to acknowledge that what they want to do, the flips and all the exciting things that they want to do, is some authentic desire of doing something that they feel exciting, right? So it's authentic, you know, it's exciting, and you gotta let them do. The other thing is, you know better that it's more important to lay the foundation first, and you need to help them out to achieve that foundation. So what I would recommend is to create drills, really create a lot of drills that will help you out, and then you use the training of other stuff, like the floreios, as a reward for the drills that you had. You do as a reward. You can't also just let them do whatever they want to do. You can't, because they're going to do that, learn that, and then they're going to be bored very soon. They're going to be very bored, and then what do you do next? How do you go back to the foundation? So you need to create drills. For each group that you're teaching, depends where. I don't know how things are really here in Israel, but I know in California, it changed from neighborhood to neighborhood. I teach classes I taught classes a few years ago in one certain neighborhood that I almost quit teaching kids. I felt I don't want to teach kids anymore because the kids are so, you know, they had such a bad behavior. They wouldn't listen. They wouldn't do it. And then I went to teach in a school in a Latino neighborhood. It was a total different ballgame. When I got to the Latino neighborhood, the kids were, you know, well behaved. They knew how to respond to authority. They would do what I asked them to do, and they were very interested. You know, so for each group that you teach, there's a different dynamic. And as a teacher, you need to believe, first of all, believe and know that you can be creative to find some kind of drills that will help them out. Malandro is here, he can tell. Dude, sometimes I come to my capoeira class, I bring a soccer ball, and I say, okay, now we're going to do the warm-up. Make 2 goals there, divide in 2 teams, we do the warm-up playing soccer. I have done soccer, I have done basketball, I have done all kinds of different games. With my kids, I even go outside, you know, and on the, you know, the schoolyard, and I do other different kind of Brazilian games. We play like marbles, a little bit. I do as a reward. I say, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this much capoeira, and if everybody behaves well and do well, after that we're gonna play. We're gonna out and play, and they love it. You know, we fly kites, we play marbles, we throw tops, we do things like that, and it's fun. And they live that, you know, reality to a certain extent that they bring their parents to class to see, you know, to show them that now they can do a capoeira move and they can also spin a top. You know, if the group, the age group that you're working is a little older than that, I'm talking here about young kids. They're from 8 to 12, 13 maybe. Once you start getting to the age of 14, it's a different story, because now they, you know, they're more articulated. They know how to talk back to you. They know they can resist, but there are tons of drills that you can do with them. You can do drills with the music. You can ask them about what it is that they want to do. You can ask them, what do you want to do? You want to go do some flips in the park? Okay, well, we'll have a drill. You have to be one thing that when you're teaching kids, it's a must. You need to stick by a word. You need to stick by a word. You can't disappoint them, and you also cannot give in because they disappointed you. You gave them a drill, or you gave them something and say, okay, we're going to do here 200 kicks. This is our goal today. And then after the 200 kicks, we're going to go to the park and we're going to do some flips. And everybody must do the 200 kicks. So even the ones that are not doing it, they're going to be pressed and pushed by the ones that are doing to do it. Because it's a group effort. It's not something that is just one person, another person. It's a group effort. And then the whole group needs to just, if everybody does, but one kid doesn't do it, and you have to say to the group, "Look, I'm sorry, can't do it." You cannot break a word, because if you break a word, then you start setting a bad precedent. And then you lose the power of teaching, you know, that you have. But then, if they do it, then you gotta go too. But then, let's say, by the time they did it, it's already the end of the class and you don't have any more time. That's okay. Rearrange situation. Rearrange it. So we didn't do this class, but the next class we're gonna do for sure. The next class you don't have to do the 200 kicks. We just do a warm-up and a stretch, then we'll go to the park and we flip. Or we do it here in the car, we lay the mat and we flip. You stick your word to it, because if you don't do it, they also start losing trust in you, and they need to have trust in you. They need to trust you. The training, once when you become an instructor, that was one thing that I wanted to talk today too, is somebody that have been teaching for a long time, for example, like Edan, and myself. you have a certain experience in teaching, and you have a certain vision, and sometimes we even forget that people that are just coming in, beginners or intermediate even, don't have that vision. You know, it's very common. We're so involved in capoeira. We're so involved in what we're doing. We're already so involved with high-level belts. I saw Idan having the meeting today there, and he had like 30 instructors there. Well, that shows already how many people he's dealing there is on a higher level basis. Sometimes it's difficult to go back to the reality of a beginner and really understand completely where the beginner is coming from, because maybe he's already so far away from that beginner in terms of the training thing, that or the intermediate, that he can do a mistake. You see? Yes. Contramestres, mestre, instructor, we all do mistakes. Okay? Sometimes we miss something. We miss something that the student needs from us. We try our best. We're there, really try our best to listen to everybody, to help everybody out, to give our attention to everybody. But sometimes we can't. We just can't. Either because we miss it, because we don't see it, or because we forget, or because there's too many people to take care of, and we just can't at that moment. So my point is, the students always need to give the mestre, the instructor, the contramaster, the benefit of the doubt. It's a ritual that needs to exist in order to preserve the integrity of the group. You need to give them the benefit of the doubt. Why is it that the instructor is not giving me what I want? Well, perhaps we don't know why. Perhaps even the instructor don't know why. So what? The world is not going to end. The students need to know that. How does the students start learning that? Well, the instructors, you guys are instructors right now, need to start passing on that kind of information to students. It does get to a point, that this is not going to have to be talked about anymore. When the costumes of capoeira, when the habit of capoeira becomes a second nature thing, it's so imprinted, so many people already know how it is, it's already understood. It's already understood, and then it goes on by word of mouth, and people just pass on to each other. It happens naturally. You're not going to have, but you have to start at some point. And the instructors need to start this right now by really educating their students, the younger students, to respect each other, first of all, and then to respect always instructor. So if you see somebody that is frustrated at somebody else, you need to teach them to just relax and just not to worry about it. And just don't worry about it. You don't have to have an answer for everything. You don't have to have an explanation for everything. Particularly beginners, intermediates, they want answers for everything. Everything they need to be explained. No, they don't need it. You need to give the instructor, the master, the contramaster, the benefit of the doubt. It's a ritual that is very important to start being exercised among the group. The other thing is a topic that, for me, is very important, because capoeira is over 400 years old art form. It's an art form that is very exciting, that is, as I said a few years ago here, is the fastest growing martial art in the world, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I think it's the fastest growing martial art in the world. It's spreading like really big, and but I saw that happening in São Paulo. When I first started training capoeira in São Paulo, capoeira was not that big, and then a few years later, São Paulo had over 5,000 schools just in one city, and who knows how many schools are there in São Paulo city now. It's just like thousands and thousands of schools. And The history keeps repeating itself over and over again. I think that people are not respecting capoeira in a professional level. You see, there is a very fine line in between friendship and professionalism. Capoeira is a profession. Capoeira for Idan here, for Daniel, for the people that are now making their living of capoeira, it's a profession. But it's a profession that is fun, you see. And then afterwards, you take your student, you go out, have dinner, you tap on their back, they tap on your back, you have a little drink together. And so all of a sudden, it's a profession that it gets mixed up with friendship. And people really think, they start not understanding really the relationship of the professionalism of capoeira and the real, where the friendship fits in, where it stops and then becomes a profession. Well, look at the history. Mestre Bimba died basically in misery. So he did Mestre Pastinha, and Mestre Valdemar, and Mestre Canjiquinha, and Mestre Gato, and you just name it. Just name it. All these masters that have died, and why was that? It's because capoeira, up until now, have not received the recognition as a profession as it deserves. Capoeira needs to be respected as a profession. In the United States, people that do other martial arts now, black belts and academies and all this, it's all done in a top level profession you can imagine. Sure, I think they went to a certain extreme in a way because it's America, because they have Hollywood, because they make movies, they make all this extra drama, that the martial arts lost a lot of its essence too. In capoeira, I think it's going to be a little bit harder to lose that essence. You know why? Because we have the roda. And it's a different story. When you enter the roda, you will see if somebody plays capoeira or don't play. If they're good or not good, you will see right there. It's not like other martial arts that they do in between four walls. They go there, they do their little sequence, the little routine of things. They may have a good form, they may not. Not that the encounters, the confrontation that they have is not as much as we have in capoeira. Capoeira have confrontation all the time. You go to all kinds of rodas, you play capoeira with anybody. And if you're good, fine. If you're not, you might be in trouble. So I think it's going to be harder for capoeira to fall into the category of the level being way too bad. It's going to be bad. In some places, there are going to be places that the level in capoeira is not going to be very good. Well, it's important that this generation now, capoeiristas now, see this and really start working on the foundation, paying attention to laying a good foundation, to learning the history, to know all of this so you can preserve this essence of capoeira as much as you can for as long as you can. So you can keep capoeira strong for a long time and perhaps even just strong always. That is important. But there will be some schools and some places that are terrible, they're not so good. There's going to be that. You can't help for that. But if we take capoeira to the next level of professionalism, then these things are going to change. And besides that, also, the masters, the old masters, and the people, in you guys, this new generation is coming, are going to have a future that you can trust in capoeira. Because trust me, nowadays, capoeira is not something as a profession that you can trust very much. Mestre Bimba used to have hundreds, thousands of students. Mestre Suassuna has an incredible group. Hundreds, thousands of students all over the world. But the man is 65 or more years old, and nobody really knows. No, he does not even know how old he is. And he's still having to work his guts out in order to make a living. Not that he's not doing good. No, he's doing good. Thank God, Suassuna is doing good. But you know what? He's still worried. He's still concerned about his finances. He still doesn't have a security. He doesn't have a system that supports him. If he falls sick tomorrow, unless for his students to come and help him out, which I believe they will, he doesn't have any system that backs him up. I tell him all the time, I say, Suasuna, you were supposed to be laying on your hammock of your property and know that the money is coming into our account already. He is at an age, 65 years old, that he should have that kind of security. It hurts me to see that masters like him are still having to struggle, and this is only happening because capoeira is not, capoeiristas are not respecting capoeira to the level of professionalism that it deserves, that it needs to take. And I'm very picky about that. Because of that, I have developed systems with our group there in the United States. I have totally done about it, that we have a certain system that everybody that is part of our group supports the group, and we send some support to Suasuna also. And we're trying to do that to see if we work as a role model, so then hopefully other academies of Group Cordão de Ouro will also be able to do it and help him out. But I just call the attention of all the capoeiristas to pay attention to that, because on a daily basis we're dealing with a lot of stuff in capoeira. We're dealing with finances, we're dealing with payment, we're dealing with students training for free. I have tons of students that train with me for free, and those are the people that have the most problem, particularly financially, you know. And there are other people that pay for the class and everything, and things are okay. You know, so there are systems, there are ways that we can change that. There are many ways. And it's important to start raising that awareness to bring capoeira to the next level. Because capoeira can get to the next level, and in my opinion, can be ahead of many of these very successful martial arts out there today, because we have things that they don't have. We have a lot of things that they don't have. We have the biggest thing that we have is the community building. We have the community building. Other martial arts don't build community. Yes, they do. They do, but it's to a certain extent a little bit limited. Because usually class is over, instructor go home, students go home, yes sir, no sir, bow here, bow there, bye. In capoeira we do encounters, we go to the beach, we have friends, we meet them all over the world. You go to Brazil, meet people there. You go to the United States, you meet people there. It's a whole community that is becoming, it used to be just local, and now it's becoming international. We're meeting people everywhere. So for that, I see the potential in capoeira as a bigger potential than in the other martial arts. We capoeiristas need to be aware of that and start working on that for our own benefit. So it won't happen to Suasuna what happened to Mestre Biba, to Mestre Pastinha. Yeah, I certainly don't want it happening to me. I certainly don't want it happening to me. That's why I take capoeira to a different level professionally, and I know that it's not going to happen to me because I'm taken to a different level. But I want to see that happening for everybody. I want to see it happening for Idan. I want to see it happening for Daniel. Because here they are putting a lot of their time, their effort, their heart into the art, and it's very great and this and that, but trust me, that could change very quickly too. Could change very quickly, and then not only Idan would lose, but everybody would lose. Because he can only have all this motivation that he has when things are going well in his life. If all of a sudden things start not going well, guess what? He's going to have to divert his attention to someplace else, you know. I think I ran out of topic.
נגמר גם הקסטה. תגיד לו עכשיו,
Yeah. So let me ask you this first, please. Look, no questions is stupid enough that you shouldn't ask. Please ask whatever question you have in mind, okay? It doesn't matter. You would be surprised that the question that you have will also be the questions that many people have and feel embarrassed to raise their hand and ask a silly question. So just ask me any question.
When Master Kabbalah was here, he told us that Sasana created dance before. Is it true?
Yes. It's true because I was part of that when he created. In my time, Suassuna not only taught us capoeira, but he exposed us to capoeira Angola a lot. So Suassuna is actually the creator of the capoeira workshops and capoeira encounters, because that didn't exist before. When I used to be a capoeira student, you would not even dare to take a class with another master. You would not even dare. You guys are very lucky. You were living at a time the capoeira is totally different. And in those days, if you took a class with one other master and your master would find out, you would be kicked out of their academy. So Suassuna started changing that. He started bringing João Grande, João Pequeno, and he would bring them to teach our group only. It was not an open thing that was for everybody else. No, he wanted to expose his students to a different type of capoeira. So we trained a lot of Angola with Mestre Gato, and then it always started because on Saturdays after training we would do a rehearsal for the shows that we would do every now and then at his academy. And as the academy was open, because his academy in Brazil was at Duque de Caxias, you know, which is a huge academy. It's not the academy that he's teaching now, which is a small place. It was at Duque de Caxias, the big place, and then in front of this major street, and like rush hour, lots of people would be downstairs on the bus stop waiting for their bus. And we were upstairs training, the windows open, music, batucada, maculele. And so people would get interested and would go up there and they started watching the training. And he started noticing that there was a way to attract people.